All right. Welcome to the class. We're gonna start with the review of the pieces from last time and how they move. Okay, so the pieces are there's a pawn, a knight, a bishop, a rook. Well, sorry. There are the pawns, rooks, knights, bishops, and a queen and a king for each side. And how do they move? Okay, let's start with the rook. So the rook can move horizontally and vertically, so up, down, left, right, and it cannot jump over pieces. The only pieces that can do that will be the knight, and we'll get there. Okay, so the bishop can move diagonally in any direction and captures diagonally in any direction. Same for the rook, I should have mentioned. So if there's a piece on f8, like a bishop on f8, you can take the bishop. It wouldn't be recommended. The queen is a combination of the rook and bishop. And it can move like both of them, both diagonally, horizontally, vertically, and captures that way too. And because of its flexibility, it's the most powerful piece. Uh, well, the king would be counted as the most powerful piece, but it's not the most powerful. It's the most important. If your king gets made, yeah. Okay, so the knight is a little bit complicated, but all you need to know that it moves in an L shape in any direction that like doesn't have a piece of your own. Like you can cap if there's a black pawn on d4 here, uh if there's black pawn on any of the squares, black pawn or piece on any of the squares that this knight can go to, as shown by the arrows. You can capture it, but there's like say a white piece on all the squares, and knight is restricted. And then I can jump over pieces. So if there was a black piece on say like e3, which is right above the knight can still go to d4 because the knight is able to jump over pieces. The king is the most important piece. So if you get mated, you lose, and the king can move one square in any direction available, except for uh, castling, which I will explain later. Okay. The pawn. So the pawn at its starting square, which is the uh second rank for white and the seventh rank for black, can move two squares to the fourth or fifth rank, fourth rank and fifth ranks respectively, or it can move one square, but only on the first move. Uh, after the first move, uh, it can only move one square at a time. The pawn captures diagonally to the left or right. Uh, um, yeah, we'll show a special rule about the pawn captures. Yeah, and if the pawn reaches like the enemy's back rank, so for white, the black's back rank is the eighth rank. You can promote to anything a queen other than the king, a queen, rook, bishop, or knight. Same for black. And just a quick reminder of how to set the pieces up. So we start with the rooks and we start with pawns in front of pawns on the second and seventh rank, 8 of them. And behind them, we have rooks in the corners, knights right next to them, bishops right next to knights, and then on the left, uh, well, on D1 there's a queen, and on E1 there's a king, and parallel to them, there would be a queen and a king for black. Uh, now that we finished the review, this should have been done at the beginning. But sorry, I should introduce myself. Okay, yeah, so I started playing chess at about 7.5 years old, when my dad taught me in Japan, and uh, I've been playing chess for about 8 years. I'm an international master with two GM norms, two Grandmaster norms. So to get international master is the top second highest title, and to get the Grandmaster title, you need to get three norms, so three good, like very good tournament performances, and 2,500 ratings. So I have two of those norms. My rating's quite far away, about 100 points, around 2,400. Uh, and yeah, I need one more norm. My tournament accomplishments include winning the 2020 and 2021 Speeches Championships, uh, and getting top 15 in multiple Tiger Tuesdays, or similar events like Chess 960. Like to be honest, like every time I play the reset, right, I get it. So, anyways, I'm also a top 100 Blitz player on Blitz Chess. Like that's okay. So a draw. So a draw is when neither side gets a win, neither side wins, and they split the points. So when one side wins, they get 1 point typically, and the other side gets zero. But if it's a draw, each side gets one. So the ways that a draw can happen are stalemate, three-move repetition, threefold repetition, or three-move repetition. The 50-move rule by agreement. So you agree to draw. Like I offer you a draw and you accept. The game is a draw. Uh, the other two are insufficient material. So I'll explain. An insufficient material by against timeout. Let's start with stalemate. So stalemate is when a person has no legal move but is not in check either. So like they either have no pieces left, but that their king is stuck and cannot move, and that would be a draw. Or I mean, in some instances, yeah, there can still be pieces. But if none of them can move, it doesn't matter. And then none of the move and your king is not in check or checkmate, it's a draw. The move repetitions when the same positions repeated three times. Uh, for example, like any position, like even here. It's like e4, e5, knight f3. So knight moves in L shape. Knight f6, knight back. So yeah, here the position has been repeated three times, as you can see. So one, this is this original. Two, after the knight dance, and three again, three times again. I moves one, three, and five. So since the position has been repeated three times, and there's no change to any of the other rights, en passant or castling, it's a draw. Okay, a draw by 50 move by the 50 move rule is when no pawn has been moved for 50 moves in a row, or no pieces have been captured for 50 moves in a row. So like typically when this happens would be like an end game, like two like a rook and bishop versus a rook, for example. And this is one like the end games that takes a while, but like if with share screen, sorry. Um, So like for example, like the pieces just shuffle around for like 50 moves. And then like if you get to move 50 and all the pieces are still here, then it's a draw. Okay, insufficient material is when either both sides or one side they don't have enough material to deliver a checkmate. Well, actually, yeah, insufficient material is when neither player has enough material to deliver a checkmate by any means. And when it's a draw by insufficient material, that means that one side has pieces. Uh, I mean, okay, one or both sides have pieces, but the side that uh the side that would normally win the game by flagging, which is when your time runs out, cannot win because don't have enough material to forcefully deliver a checkmate. For example, this position, white runs out of time. I mean, normally you just call it a draw because um okay, I knights. Well, with one knight you cannot deliver checkmate. With two knights you still can, but so like there's two knights. Black's lone king cannot mate white's king because the kings can never touch. Um, uh, just like a fun thing. Like if there was like a knight, set this on for better. If there was say like two knights, right? And black wears a timeout. Uh, I believe in the FIDE rules, it's just a draw because uh like if the black knight wasn't there, like there's no way, right? It's just knight versus knight. And the USCF, United States Chess Federation rules, uh, it's not because like if black plays in this, yeah, like if black playing the stupidest way possible can get mated because the king cannot go here or here because the king will capture it and the knight's checkmate. But yeah, I mean, normally in such instances, just be careful if you don't flag it. Okay, our next now we're gonna go to our two special roles, en passant. So if either white has a pawn that has not moved, those white or black has a pawn that has not moved at all from their second or seventh rank, and there is a pawn that is um two squares in front of it and like not directly in front of it but adjacent to it. Say yeah, there's a pawn on c2 and black has a pawn on b4, d4. Or like white has a pawn on e5 and black has a pawn on f7 or d7. So if white were to play c4, which normally pawns, remember, they can capture diagonally. So if the pawn was on yeah, if the pawn was on b5 and he plays c4, normally you can take b takes c4, right? Because pawns capture diagonally. But now here like the pawn can still go and sort of like prevent the pawn from moving. It's like so like en passant, like you you jump over and capture. Like if the like you capture as if the pawn had just moved one square. And same for the other side. Like if black goes f5, you can jump over and take f6. So when you write it, you write e takes f6, not e takes f5. It's a bit weird, but once you get familiar, it makes sense. Okay, our next special rule is castling, and we're gonna give some positions to make sure you understand. Um, so castling is the only move where you can Well, castling. First of all, castling requires the king and the rook, and when you when you when you make the move to castle, your king will, but both the king and rook will move. The king will move. Well, there's two ways to castle. Short side, which is where you're well in both short side and long side, but king side and queen side. Sorry, what am I saying? King, your king moves two squares to either the king side or the queen side. By the way, they're called the king side and queen side because, as you remember, there's a king on e1. So anything to the right of that is the king side, and a queen on d1. So anything to the left is the queen side. So if your king wins, king goes to the castle's king side, then the king side, then it's king side castle, and to the queen side. Okay, so the king moves two squares, jumps two squares. So to from E1 to G1, or black E8 to G8, and the rook jumps over it to F1. And for a long queenside castle, the king would also jump two squares to C1, and the rook would still jump over. So it's also called yeah, like long castle, short castle, and long castle, because the rook has to jump three squares over. Short side. Typically, though, most castling is done to the short side of the. Um, okay, now let's talk about legality of castling. So the castling, you can castle when neither your king or rook has moved. So if the king if the king moved to like D1 or F1, or the rook moves somewhere like B1 or C1, or G1 or F1, that rook, your king cannot castle to that side. But like if like the H rook moves, like H ray rook moves, you can still castle to like uh but the A rook moves, you can still castle short side, and if the H rook moves, you can still castle long to the long side. Um, you also can castle if there's a piece like guarding, if there's enemy piece that has a lot like line of fire onto like one of the squares that your king has to travel. So say there's a bishop here, bishop on h6. If you okay, I'm just question. Um, well, yeah, okay, h6 fine. So with the bishop on h6, your king cannot castle to the long side because where does your king end up? C1, right? And your king ends up on D1. But but by doing that, you put your king in check, and the bishop will just take your king. So you can't do that. Same for if the bishop went on h5 actually, because your king has to pass through d1 to, right? Because the king jumps over to c1. It doesn't matter that it doesn't stop at d1, but it goes over. So if d1 or c1 is controlled, you cannot move. You cannot move. If there was a bishop on h7, guarding b1, you can just castle because the rook doesn't matter. Rook can do whatever it wants, but the king cannot be under attack anymore. Um, yeah, and also if you're in check, you cannot. If there was somehow yeah, if there was like bishop here checking you, then you cannot castle because bishop is you're in check. You cannot just it cannot just run away very easily. So you're getting mated here, like a pawn here, a queen here. You can't just run away from a mate. It's not possible. So yeah, that's why you can't castle one check. Okay, now I'm gonna give a few positions to test your knowledge. Kind of ruined the first one, but just for both of them, tell me which side you can castle to, or if you can castle at all. and I'll respond to them. Yeah, so for these positions, just like type position one, position two, position three. Which sides can the White King castle to? Or none at all if it can do this. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, I can. Okay. Okay, so yeah, for these three positions, so in the first position, as I kind of reviewed earlier, your king cannot castle to the queen side. So casting to the queen side would mean king goes to c1, the rook goes to d1, and in that case, the bishop on h6 will capture the king on c1. Bishops move and capture diagonally. But your king can still castle to the king side because there's nothing preventing it. The rooks have not moved, and the king would go jump to g1 or move to g1, and the rook would jump over the king to f1. And yeah, there's nothing attacking any of the squares the king has to go to, and rook has not moved, so it can castle. For the second position, the answer is actually the king cannot castle to either way. Uh, Simply because it's in check. And if you're in check, you have to either move your king away, block it, or capture the piece. And in this instance, you cannot capture the piece. You can move away, but even if you were able to capture the piece, you cannot castle right now. And in this instance, you can't castle forever because your king will be forced to move, and you can't castle again after. For the third position, your king, it's kind of a trick question. You can castle to both. You can just castle to both sides. Um, because there's no pieces guarding any of the squares the king can go to, and neither the rooks have moved, so you can castle to both the short and the long side. Yeah, yeah, just be careful. As yeah, you have to remember uh, and the rook that you're gonna castle with, cannot have moved at all. And make sure that your king, when you castle, it's not gonna get taken immediately, or one of the squares that the square it travels through will not get captured. Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna give some quick mate in one positions for you guys to solve. Let's start with the first one. Just type your answer and I'll tell you. Just You can type in the chat or you can DM directly message me. These positions. Start with the one on the left. Uh, these are all mate in once, so with one move you can just checkmate the Black King. So Black King has nowhere to go and will be captured the next move. So that's the definition of checkmate. Yeah, so if you have solution, just message. Yeah. I'll give like a minute more, just because to try. Everyone's good so far. Okay, yeah. It seems like most people have gotten it for the first one, so the move for the first one to make immediately is rook h8. Rook h8 mate. So the rook is attacking the king, and as you remember, the king controls the king controls the squares right beside it, so it would control the three squares in front of it. D7 right in front of it, and to the left and right. So D7, C7, E7 are controlled. So are controlled by the white king, and black king cannot go to C8 or E8, which would be the other two squares it can normally go to because the rook would capture it. And since black can't do anything to prevent the king getting captured the next move, it's me. For the second one, it's similar. And this will be one of the types of mates. We'll cover later. It's the rook roller mate. You can feel free to take a look at that if you want, but I won't cover it in this class. We'll cover it in this class. So yeah, the move is rook h8 again. Just this time, instead of the king controlling the squares, king. Yeah, instead of the white king controlling the squares that the black king can go to, it's the rook on g7. So it's like when you do this like rook roller slash long mower mate, the rooks are like sort of lasers. Like the rook on g7 prevents the king from going to the seventh rank, like as a laser. Like yeah, you know there's lasers where you can't go through, right? Anyways, yeah. So yeah, the king cannot go to seventh rank, and when the rook on h8, it's another laser, and the king is just stuck between the two lasers. The king cannot, and his inmate. Okay, for the third one, okay, for the third one, it seems like some of you guys caught that already, but just give an opportunity for. Yeah, feel free to type in the chat your answer for the third question on the right, please. Yeah, okay, seems like most of you have gotten it. Yeah, it's Queen G7. So the Queen, yeah, it's like it's also like, yeah, I guess it's known as a Lala's mate, or like in this case with like a pawn helping it, or any piece guarding the Queen. Well, it's also Queen helper mate, and it's also known as the kiss of death. So King can't go anywhere. It can't. Most importantly, it can't capture the Queen because the pawn has six guards it. When pawn's captured diagonally, so the pawn is guarding the Queen. Yeah, I'm surprised. It's very quick. Yeah, yeah, you guys did a good job. Okay. Okay. Now for an actual game. It might be a bit tough. But we'll see. I picked a very famous game. It's called the Opera game, and it was played between Paul Morphy. So he was um a very famous American chess master in the 19th century. He was known for his very beautiful attacking games. And in this game, he was playing two nobles in of Germany, yeah, what is now Germany. And so he was playing alone as the white pieces, and uh, Carl and Isard, they were like they could discuss and play. But he still won in only 17 moves. Yeah, so this might be a bit tough. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Ah, seems like some of you already know the game. Okay, so let's start. So we begin E4. That's the most. Is it the most actually? Yeah, I think it's the most. So yeah, there's two main starting moves. E4 and D4. E4 is what I play, and it's more aggressive or more sharp. I put it like that. Um, D4 is the other main move. I mean, I can't say it's not as. Well, yeah, yeah. D4 is like if you're just starting to play chess, yeah, D4 is more boring, certainly. So, uh, E4 is a good start to learn. And then if you're once you're stronger, you can decide if E4 or D4 suits you. I personally play E4. Um, okay, E4, E5. Again, the most common. I won't delve into it too much, but the other main moves are the other big main move is the Sicilian defense with C5. And there's a lot of other openings. You could feel free to learn about them, and we'll cover them later. I think not within this lecture. Okay, E4, E5, knight f3. So in the opening, you want to. Well, this will also be covered later, but I guess quickly talk about it. Just try to develop your pieces, get your pieces out. Um, so like knight f3, bishop c4, and then get your king to safety because the king in the center is not very safe. And if the center gets like open, like say these two pawns are gone, and like that can get like a rook to the e-file, your king could be in danger. So you want to get your king to safety. So castling king e1 to g1, remember? This isn't part of the game. Say d6, bishop c4, knight c6, king e1 to g1, and rook h1 to f1. And key for short side cast alongside castling, yeah, it's like a king to c1, e1 to c1, and the rook jumps over into d1. D3, D4. Yeah, so this is just center play. So it's trying to take control of the center. You get the control of the center. It's very good. Yeah, bishop g4. So if black plays like a random move, a6 for example. Yeah, fill it awkward. Yeah, so a6, if plays a6, what white can do is I can play d takes e5, taking the pawn. Black can capture back, and I can capture a queen. So queens move horizontally, vertically, diagonally. So here we're just vertically moving it. Queen takes d8 check, king takes d8, and knight takes the pawn. There's nothing defending. So um yeah, the pawn, like there's nothing attacking it. There's like bishop on d6, you can take the knight, take the knight, or the pawn f6, you can take the knight. None of these would be recommended, by the way, because my next move is going to be knight takes f7. Again, moving in L shape. Knight takes f7. And this is called a fork. Uh, fork to the king. And when the king must move, and I will take the rook afterwards. So the pawn must be defended, and in this way, it is kind of defended. So d takes e5. Here, black cannot play d takes e5 because uh, you can't take, sorry, black can not play d takes e5, not because you can't take knight takes e5. Knight takes e5 would lose directly, queen takes c1 mate. So you just lost your queen. And if you want to take the queen back, there's a bishop guarding it. So you're mate. The king cannot go anywhere either. And these two squares are occupied by both spaces. So king can't run. Yeah, I mean here knight takes e5 is fine too. I just wanted to demonstrate the Okay, so oh yeah, here d takes here d takes e5. But you can still queen takes d8 check. So king takes d8. So you take the queen first. So when you take the pawn, your queen doesn't get captured. So there's no queen. There's no queen to capture your queen. In fact, there's no queens on the board at all. So yeah, here you just took a pawn for free, and you're attacking the bishop and attacking the pawn, threatening the fork again, miracle pawn. So you're ahead one pawn. That's always good. Pawn is a pawn. Okay, bishop takes f3. So to take your knight, queen takes f3. Just bring your piece into the game, and black recaptures the pawn. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me and Steven. I'll try my best to answer. Steven wants to otherwise. Okay, d takes c5. So now we want to develop our pieces. So bishop c4. So now this is threatening something you might play actually. It's called normally it'd be called what? E4, E5. Like this is called like scholar's mate. Like this is like most most simple one of the most simple mates. So both the bishop and queen are attacking the f7 square. And if the queen if black does nothing, then your queen will take the pawn on f7. The king cannot take back because the bishop is guarding him, and the king has nowhere to run. Because if the king goes to e7, I take it, and the other squares are obstructed by black pieces. So this is something like that resembles it. So the turning queen takes f7 mate again. So black smartly blocks the queen. Like queen knight f6. Remember, only the knight can jump over pieces. So like if there was a knight here, you can play knight takes f7 round shape. But here your queen cannot jump over and take. I mean, yeah, it cannot do it. That in normal chess, there's some variants, fun variants, or it's possible. Um, but again, it's not. for the spell chests. In this case, a knife six, but you still want to attack f7, right? And here there's a really strong move. Uh, Queen to b3. So now what does it do? You're still attacking f7. Now why? You play bishop takes f7. In this position, you cannot. In this position, you cannot play bishop takes f7 check because when the king takes f7, remember queens cannot jump over um pieces. So you just lost the bishop for no reason. But with the queen on b3, with the queen on b3, now you're threatening bishop takes f7 because the king cannot take on f7 because your queen's like a laser. It can take the king. And like say the king runs here, it's such a nice mate. Queen controls black's escape square on c8. c7 and d8 are black's pieces. It cannot run there. And the queen also controls the horizontally and vertically, so the king can't run anywhere here. And this actually called this type of mate called it's like sparrow's mate, I believe. Normally would be like a pawn here, pawn or bishop here. And basically like the king is pinned in by its own pieces. And I believe the shape resembles a sparrow. Uh, okay, so but the main thing is like the queen just attacking the queen attacking the pawn, well, bishop attacking the pawn with the support of the queen is not enough because black can simply defend it, right? But the other threat is when we play this is called a double attack. So the queen, well the queen, well the bishop is attacking the pawn, but the queen is attacking the bishop is attacking the f7 pawn. The queen is attacking the b7 pawn right in front of it. So there's two threats and they can't be defended. So black chooses to defend this pawn. Yeah, this might be a bit like I said, this might be a bit tough. You can feel free to answer questions. I'm not gonna go over this next part, it's way too complicated. Just know that it's better. Yeah, queen takes b7 does win it. I'll explain it, but I'm not sure if anyone will get it. So okay, so queen takes b7. Normally, like what's the point of queen e7, right? So queen takes b7, you're attacking the rook on a8, right? You can take the rook next move, and if you win a rook in the opening at the beginning of the game, you just win the game because a rook is a lot of material. Um, it's a bit tough, but the queen can actually just you can trade. You can play queen before check. Um, so now what? Now why? Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Why can't you take the rook? Why can't the queen take the rook anymore? Yes, you're in check. So yeah, you're in check. So you can't take the rook. And you have to respond to black's threat. If you just move the king, the black queen will take your queen. So the smartest move would be to play queen takes b4, and black has a bishop here and can take your queen back. And yes, while you are up a pawn still, and you're much better. Uh, it's not well, okay. It's not nearly as good as what happened in the game because here black can escape. In the game, black has c3, and white's yeah technically winning, but it's much less dangerous than what black had to face in the game. So yeah, it's not you don't always have to like when you see like a free point, you don't always have to take it. You can prioritize development and like especially black king is unsafe. If you develop your PCs, you can cause a quick mate like in the game instead of just going for material because there's no guarantee that you can win just a one pawn. Like for for a master, yeah, it's an easy win. But if like when you're just starting to play, it's very complicated. It's not very complicated. there's a lot of uncertainties. So a pawn is sufficient. It's not much. Uh, yeah. So queen e7, knight c3, developing pieces. So you just get all the pieces off the back rank, basically. So the back rank is the rank where all the pieces that are on pawns are. So c6. No, sorry, knight c3. Now we're threatening the pawn. Why? Why are we threatening the pawn? Okay, so we're threatening the pawn because now with the queen knight on c3, say if black plays a random move, you take the pawn, right? So earlier, black had without the knight here, black had this check move, this move that placed their king in check, right? Remember? Um, but here after knight c3, a6, which doesn't matter, I'm just playing a random move. Queen takes b7. Now queen b4 is not a check because you can just take the rook. Why? Because the queen cannot jump over pieces. And there's a knight obstructing the queen's way, so it's not a check, you can just take the rook and just completely yes, you have a big advantage, very big, yeah, winning advantage, so to speak. Well, with the winning advantage, it's usually you're good, it's an easy win. Oh, and just to cover this quickly, like here, when the queen takes the rook on a8, you might notice that the queen can take this bishop, right? Queen takes the c4 bishop because the bishop is undefended. If there was a pawn on b3, you can take the queen next move. But the queen on a8 can take the knight. Because earlier, the queen was guarding the knight. Queen was guarding the knight, so you can't take here. Because the queen goes back and takes. So yeah, that's why we just I had one rook and a pawn. And as you can see from this thing down here, it's or like if I open engine or if you ask, it's just back to the game. C6. So basically, okay, C6. So how does the pawn get defended? So now the queen guards the pawn horizontally. So if my queen were to take, the queen can take horizontally, and the queen's gone. So again, we want to get all our pieces off the back rank. We have noticed so first move e4, move the pawn forward. Now we get the knight, the bishop, pawn. Okay, so now we got the queen, bishop, knight. So now we get the knight out, and now we get our last piece out, the bishop. So now all the pieces are out, and well, most of the pieces are out. And my next move, White's next move will to be to long side castle. Like also again, I'll explain why. B5. Okay, here what's black's threat? Can anyone tell me? Ugh. What's black's threat? What? Yeah, so fine. Well, what is black's threat right now? With black's last move, B7 to B5. Correct. Pawn's attacking the bishop. So normally, you just want to move. Uh, have we covered this one? I'm not sure if we haven't covered. Did Eric cover the value of the pieces yet or no? Anyways, yeah. So I can do a quick introduction. So normally the pawn is pawn is the least valuable piece. Um, and it's worth 1 point. Knight and bishop is worth 3 points. Rook is worth 5 points. General. King is yeah, the pawn's most least valuable. The knight and bishop are valuable. Yeah, okay. And the queen, the rook is valuable. The queen is the most strongest piece, but it's not the most valuable piece. Well, yeah, this is the most valuable piece. Yeah, it's the most valuable piece, and the king is invaluable because you if you get mated or captured, you lose. Yeah, and the pawn. Yeah, correct. And what's that copy with? It's called promoting. Um, so yeah, here. So normally the point is the pawn is worth 1 point and the knight is worth three. So normally, you want to make positive trades, right? To if when you make a trade, you want to gain material usually. So like say my knight's here, and then I play the knight and I take the queen, and the bishop takes my knight. It's worth it because the knight is worth 3 points and the queen is worth 9 points, and you just gain 6 points. It's really good. But here, like so, the knight takes the pawn takes the knight, and the bishop takes the pawn. So if you do some maths, you just traded your 3 points or the knight, which is worth 3 points, for two pawns, which are worth 2 points. So you just lost a point. But the material is not always important, especially when you're doing queenie attack, because as you remember, uh, the goal of the game is to deliver checkmate. And when you're attacking, it does not matter how much pieces you lose. If at the end you can deliver checkmate, that's all that matters because the king is invaluable. Yeah, yeah, that is if it's me. Okay, so yes, yeah, yeah, yes, Tina, yeah. There's no score for how many pieces you have at the end. The only score you get your point by mating the king. So yeah, king. Okay, so now we do our long castle. So king C1 rook to D1. So now what are we threatening? We're just threatening to take the knight. Play something random. Bishop takes D7. Knight takes D7. Because look, you take the knight, so you don't want to take with the queen, right? Because your rook will take the queen. And so we just traded bishop for knight, which is fine, right? So 3 for 3. But now when we play rook takes the queen and knight takes the rook, just trade your rook for a queen. The queen is the strongest piece. You don't give it up for a measly rook. Um, and knight can't take because that would be even worse. Bishop, bishop will take the queen. Bishop takes the bishop, and you just lost 9 points for 3. And the king cannot take because you can't put your king in the line of 5. So rook d8, the point is when you play take on d7, the rook can take back, right? So not now again, yeah. Normally if you wanted yeah, this is important, like the the importance or yeah. Well not you don't always have to sacrifice pieces during an attack, but should always consider that it's an option because again, your only goal is to checkmate. For example, like in the King's Indian, I don't know, and like anyways, there's a one of the openings I play like um basically you just completely ignore what's happening. You can let white take all your pieces, but at the end of the day, if you can just deliver you can deliver checkmate after the accurate because it doesn't matter. Like you have like let me give you an example actually. Ah, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many pieces black has. At the end of the day. Like for example, like this mother mate. Like I play knight f7 mate. Black has the whole army, and white only has a single knight and a king. But it's mate. Why? Because the king is smothered and smothered by its own pieces. The king cannot escape. And my next move as the knight is to just take the king. Yeah, it's so yeah. It just goes to show that pieces, the amount of pieces you have, or the value of the pieces that you have, is not always the most important thing. If you can deliver mate, nothing else matters. Yeah, trapped by its own pieces. Okay, back to the game. Oops. Going a bit slowly, sorry. Close my. Okay, back to the game. Okay, so rook d8 defending it. So again, if the bishop takes, there's no pin. Okay, so like, bishop takes, rook takes d7, rook takes d7, rook takes d7. There's nothing. The main point of playing this rook takes d7 is first of all, if you wanted to, it actually doesn't make a difference because like here, if you play bishop takes knight, trading bishop for a knight, three for three, and then you trade rook, rook takes rook, queen takes rook, rook five for five. It's even anyways. But the thing is, with this rook takes d7, you have an option. You don't have to take immediately. You can play rook d1 because the rook is not going anywhere. But why is the rook not going? The rook cannot take your rook because the bishop pins it. So and this is what was it called? This is called absolute pin. We'll go through. I don't think I've covered yet, but in the future we'll go through this. Um, yeah. So a pin is when there's like your low value piece is attacking higher value piece, but behind that higher value piece is a piece that's also as valuable as that, or even more valuable. And in this case, the piece behind it is the king, which is invaluable. So the rook cannot move even if it wants to. Cannot move even if it wants to. So you can just take it back with the bishop or the rook next move. And again, this bishop is also doing its job. All the pieces are doing their jobs. So this bishop is pinning. So for example, black plays something random. Bishop takes rook. Knight takes rook. Bishop takes queen. Queen takes bishop. We have a rook here, remember. Rook takes queen. And at the end of the day, black's queen is gone. And usually when that happens, you just lose. Okay, queen e6. Or this is close to the end of the game. Queen e6. I want you guys to solve it at the end. Queen e6. Getting out of the spin. So when you play bishop takes e7, check. You can play knight takes d7 now because with the queen on e7, when the queen was back here, your bishop can take, but the queen's not. So if you count, um, so far there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pawns for white and 5 pawns for black. So we're up 2 pawns. We each have a bishop. We each have a rook. We each have a queen. But black has an extra knight. So at the end of the day, black is ahead 1 point. So why do we do all that? But it's actually a way to deliver mates in 2 moves. and try to solve it. And hence it involves a sacrifice. Yeah, I'll give a minute. Yeah, so it's really nice. It's queen. The move is queen b8 check. So yeah, you might just think you're just getting your knight captured. So first of all, you're attacking. You're just mating the king. Otherwise, the king cannot go forward because the bishop will capture it. Then the knight will take. But the knight can take the queen. But now we can play rook d8, rook back rank. It's like a version of that rank. Back rank mate. It's not a typical one, but yeah, it's still back rank mate because I'm mating the king on the back rank. The bishop guards the rook. The king can't go forward, can't take the rook. It's obstructed by its own pieces again, which is also part of the back rank mate. The king can't go forward either because rook takes. And yeah, like, as you can see, black is a queen, a knight, a bishop, and a rook. We only have a rook and a bishop. But at the end of the day, none of it matters because the king can't escape, and the king will be the king is mated. And, um, yeah, black loses again. Yeah, so it's a really nice instructive miniature. Games under 20 moves are often called miniatures. Yeah, 17 moves. Um, yeah. Oh yeah, and for the homework, let me give the homework. Okay, so I have five. So for your homework, I have five mate in one positions. How do I send them actually? Okay, I'll send them by email afterwards. There's five mate in one positions for you to solve. Um, and I would like guys to play at least one game and try to review them. If you have any questions, you can you can send it to my email, Chen. Try to play at least one game. Uh, if you have any questions, feel free to. Yeah, the homework you can do it later. I will send it. I try to take a picture. I can send it. Probably should just send it. Yeah, I'll figure out how to send it afterwards. Anyways, yeah, try to do these positions and play a game. If you have any questions about either or just questions in general, you can just reach out to me.